Welcome to the Wise Wolf Project. I'm your host, Wise Wolf, and I'm coming to you today, 7:53, Saturday, August 14th, 2010. The title of this is The Fox and the Wolf. And I have to do a little setup before I get into it to explain what I mean. Back in the early 60s, there was either 63, 64, 65. Malcolm X gave a speech entitled The Ballot or the Bullet. And within that, he used one of the things he discussed in that speech was the conniving ways of the political establishment. And at that time, the the majority of black African Americans and blacks they voted primarily Democrat, which is actually still in effect today. Majority of African Americans you find will be primarily affiliated with the Democrat Party. And at that time, there was a difference in the mindset of most African Americans between Southern Democrats and Northern Democrats. And because the Southern Democrats were basically seen as segregationist, racist, and so they had that Jim Crow like mentality. And so they did not, African Americans leaned more toward, even though they were in the Democratic Party, they leaned more toward the Northern Democrats because they felt like they were actually for them. And so that was really not the way Malcolm saw it. He thought that they were all in it the same. They were one and the same. And so he used the wolf and the fox and the wolf as a metaphor. And he said this, and it's always stuck with me about this. He said, in the North, they are political foxes. In the South, political wolves. A fox and a wolf are both canine. Both belong to the dog family. So you take your pick. You want a northern dog or a southern dog. But any dog you choose, I guarantee you'll still be in the doghouse. So I've taken that, and that really hit me when I heard that. Because I can apply that same mindset to the political landscape today. A lot of people are on one side of the aisle, but I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm not talking about a separation between Democrats. I'm talking about a separation between the Democrat and Republican Party. They see a huge difference. And because of what I have studied myself and because of this speech, at least this part of the speech, I have come to the realization that there is no difference between the Democrat and Republican Party. No difference between the two. These two parties have been in power for decades and were in power when this economic depression hit our shores. I find them both guilty of neglect, fraud, conspiracy, collusion, and deceit. And there's an old saying that goes, Democrats tax and spend, the Republicans borrow and spend. But what's the difference if you're both spending and you end up with the same result? The Afghan and Iraq wars were started during the Bush administration, but they're being continued during the Obama administration. The $1 trillion Medicare prescription bill passed by the Bush administration has been outdone by another $1 trillion Medicare bill passed earlier this year. And both sides of the aisle seem to be outraged by the successful passage of a bill by the other side. Not one administration, Republican or Democrat, has run a budget surplus since the Carter administration. No, not even Clinton. Check the facts. Go to the U.S. Treasury website. They have all the numbers. You can calculate it yourself. And speaking of Clinton, the NAFTA agreement, North American Free Trade Agreement, was passed by him. But it was introduced during George H.W. Senior Bush and asked the unemployed American worker how well NAFTA has been for them. So both sides of the aisle have contributed to this. And if I recall, the American people were clearly against the Wall Street bailouts, and yet the bailouts went out anyway. Furthermore, when you think about it, any type of legislation, crap or otherwise, that comes out of Congress is government. So they're all included, unified. And if the Republicans and Democrats were so outraged by certain legislation, like say for instance now, the Republicans are upset about Obamacare. Where was that outrage when Bush passed, when they held the majority? And if they're so outraged, why then, when they regain congressional majority, do they not bring up the questionable legislation back up and rescind it? They don't do it because they're united behind closed doors. They are playing a political con game with you. They make you believe one party is for you, that the other one is against you, when in reality, neither one of them for you. Why do you think it's so hard for a third party to get elected? It's because the criminals who are playing political volleyball with your emotions don't want another player in the game for fear that they might lose control. For if you found out that there was more than just two options when you go to the ballot box, you might, sooner or later you might be tempted to try the alternative. Both parties pass legislations written by lobbyists. The Patriot Act was one. This new Obamacare, Medicare bill is the other. And you wonder why the politicians don't read the bills. Well, if they read them, they might detect some fraud and have to do something about it. I mean, people were all up in arms about the bailout firms taking bonuses when they should have really been looking at the bill itself, which gave the firms the permission to deliver bonuses in the first place. And you think these people give a flying flip about you? They hold mock trials in hope that we the people won't get too upset that they weren't doing their jobs in the first place. I mean, the Federal Reserve gave trillions of our money, our dollars, away to foreign interest. And when asked about it by Congress for the names of the recipients, Mr. Bernanke said he wasn't going to tell us. We didn't have a right to know. Let me get this straight. You take my money without asking, some might call that a thief. In the hood, it's a jack. And then when I ask you about it, when I press you about it, you say I don't have a right to know? And when given a chance to knock the Fed down the size to a point where they have to address certain issues that are being asked, the cowards in Congress said no to H.R. 1207. That's the Audit the Fed bill. They get one audit, but what kind of mess is that? I mean, that's what happened with just think of some of these companies. If you could just audit them one time, look at all of the Repo 105s that they're doing, and that had this catastrophe, this economic meltdown not happen, most of us would not have ever heard of it. They play financial games with the accounting books, and our Congress is allowing it to happen. In fact, they changed some of the rules specifically so that companies like Wells Fargo and J.P. Morgan, these hot shots, Bank of America, Citigroup, so they wouldn't go out of business. Did they do that for you? Did they do that for you? Did they rearrange laws so that you can have a better chance of staying afloat? Did they give you billions? No, they did none of that. In fact, the new FinReg bill that just passed gives the Fed more power. More power. The ones that snubbed us, more power. But what can you expect from a fox and a wolf? That's my time.